Hi everyone, my name is Beliz Kaleli, and today I will be presenting our paper on unintended URLs in social media. This work is a collaboration between Boston University and Stony Brook University. First, I want to start by describing auto-link rendering feature in online platforms. Most of the popular online platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, they all have this feature. Whenever a user posts a text that contains a URL inside of it, these platforms will render this part of the text as a clickable link so that whenever a follower of these users goes and clicks that part of the text, they will be redirected to that website. And these rendered links usually shown as blue in those platforms. However, sometimes these rendered links can be unintended. So we have three different examples on here, three different tweets. If you look at the first one on the left side, we have Rudy Giuliani's tweet, and we can see that he made a mistake and he forgot to put a space after the first sentence and before the second sentence, causing an unintended URL. Similarly, the other examples we have on the slide are the same mistake happening and causing an unintended URL. In this paper, we decided to focus on Twitter because approximately 400 million tweets are posted on a daily basis. And because of the retweeting mechanism, the audience of a tweet has the potential to increase exponentially. Of course, the follower count of the tweet author has a big effect on the impact of a tweet. And as you can see here, Rudy Giuliani has around 700K followers, Urban Dictionary has around 300K followers, and Kanye West has around 30.6 million followers. So this means that when Kanye West posted this tweet, at least 30.6 million people saw this tweet in their timelines, and this is only the minimum boundary. So because of the retweeting feature, this number is probably much higher. We wanted to understand the behavior of some of the most popular online services towards this auto link rendering feature. So we tested 9 of them. We came up with 23 different test cases, which are essentially strings, URLs with different properties. And we posted these on these platforms to test. And we observed that none of these platforms have a sophisticated enough mechanism that can distinguish between an intended and an unintended URL. So what is the threat here? What happens when a user posts an unintended URL? So here we have a little scenario. We have two Twitter users called Alice and Bob. And let's say that Bob follows Alice on Twitter. And then Alice posts a tweet containing an unintended URL. This URL is NDSS 2021.how in our example. Then Mallory here is our attacker, and Mallory registers the unintended domain controlling that URL and points it to a malicious server. Since Bob follows Alice on Twitter, whenever Bob checks his timeline, he will be able to see Alice's tweet. And then he clicks on the link and he is now exposed to Mallory's malicious content. So here we have a diagram that shows the steps that we followed in the rest of this paper, and it consists of 3 subcomponents. The first one is the model developing component. Here we develop our machine learning model that can distinguish between unintended and intended URLs and make predictions. And the second component is the automated detection framework that we built to predict unintended URLs on Twitter on a daily basis. And the third component is our browser extension that we developed as a mitigation to this problem. I want to start by explaining the first component, which is the model developing part. So here we start by setting up a data collector for Twitter that collects 1% of the tweets posted worldwide daily, and then we apply a pre-filtering mechanism to those tweets. So we have several different filters on this step, one of which is to filter out the tweets that do not contain URLs. We also do some manual inspections on the URLs inside of those tweets to come up with the features for our classifier. Then we collect a set of tweets, and we manually label the URLs inside of those tweets as unintended or intended. Then we use this manually labeled dataset to train our linear SVM classifier. And finally, we obtain our machine learning model. So how do we use our features to distinguish between an intended and unintended URL? On this slide, we have 3 different tweets, and 2 of them, the top 2, contains an unintended URL, and the one on the bottom contains an intended URL. So there are several observations that we can make just by looking at these tweets. If you look at the first one, which has the true.u as an unintended URL inside of it, you can see that the same mistake happened here. The author forgot to put a space after the first sentence, causing an unintended URL. And we can observe that this is the URL here resides in the middle of the tweet. Whereas if you check the intended URL one, which is amazondumps.us, that URL resides at the end of the tweet. Again, true.u has a pattern that we can observe here. Since the U part belongs to another sentence, it starts with a capital letter. So there's a pattern of a capital letter coming after a dot here. And also the second level domain part and the top level domain part of this URL are actual English words. Whereas if you look at the amazondumps.us example, Amazon dumps is not an actual English word. It is just a combination of 2 words. Another observation here is that amazondumps.us repeats twice in one single tweet, which is also an indication of that this URL is an intended URL rather than an unintended URL. And the second one also has a path information. And we can again say that this is an inclination towards an intended URL. So if you look at the second unintended URL we have here, which is lt.gov, you can see that this is an abbreviation that people usually use. So this unintended URL isn't caused by some mistake. So it is actually sort of like a legitimate usage. It is like a grammatically correct usage, but still this became an unintended URL in Twitter. After that, we wanted to measure the accuracy of our classifier. So we gathered a new data set from Twitter that we haven't used to train our classifier on. And again, we manually labeled this data sets. And then we run our classifier on this dataset to get the accuracy score, which was 93.3% for our classifier. Now I want to move on to the automated detection framework part of our diagram. So again, we start by setting up our data collector here, and then we apply our pre-filtering mechanisms. After that, we run our classifier on these tweets to get the unintended URL predictions. And if these URLs are registerable, we register those. And we also implement a crawler here to cluster these websites according to their content. As I said, we monitor 1% of daily tweets with our automated detection framework, but also we monitor 20,000 popular Twitter users with follower counts ranging between 11,000 to 118 million. And we register the unintended URLs that we find in these steps, and we forward the traffic to our servers to record the requests to those domains. So we run our framework for 7 months, and we collect around 26,000 unintended URLs. And here you can see a graph that shows the number of unintended URLs that we observe each day from the beginning of our experiment up until the end. And here we make another observation that 72% of these unintended URLs are actually non-existing domains at the time of posting. So we make also other observations. The first one is 89.5% of these unintended URLs are in the middle of the tweet, whereas 9% of them are at the beginning and only 1.5% are at the end. Another observation is that abbreviations such as b.tech, b.sc, prod.by, etc. are among the most posted unintended URLs. So this is kind of an important observation because we can understand that Twitter doesn't even have a simple enough mechanism that can distinguish between these abbreviations and intended URLs. After that, we wanted to understand the impact of an unintended URL. So on the left side here, we have a table that shows unintended URLs with highest original author follower count. And you can see that Harry Styles posted 2 unintended URLs during our experiments, and he has around 34 million followers. Similarly, Oprah posted 1, and she has around 42 million followers. And on the right side, you can see a graph that shows average daily requests for all unintended domains registered. So here we can make 2 observations. The first one is that we got hundreds of requests for some domains, and the number of requests starts to decrease after the day of posting the tweet. And also collectively, these requests collectively make a much bigger number of requests. Then we implemented a crawler that can cluster these domains according to their content. And we observed that around 40% of these domains are actually parking domains, which were shown to serve malicious content by previous work. And some of these domains were deceptive survey domains and file download domains. So we conclude here that 42.3% of the web pages in our dataset could expose users to potentially dangerous and unwanted content. Finally, we develop a Chrome extension. By using our classifier, this extension is able to predict an unintended URL inside of a tweet when a user tries to post a tweet. And it can also warn this user by showing a dialog box. We wanted to see the performance effects of our browser extension, and we observed that the delay caused by our extension is typically under a second, even in the extreme cases of a user posting 3 URLs in one tweet. Here we note that Twitter can implement something like our extension in their own platform as a mitigation to this problem. So in this work, over a period of 7 months, we processed millions of tweets. We discovered around 26,000 unintended URLs. And we discovered that as long as attackers register unintended domains shortly after they are posted on Twitter, they will receive visits from hundreds of unsuspected Twitter users. And we also explained the threat the unintended URLs pose. And finally, we presented a lightweight browser extension which will warn users when they're about to tweet text that includes an unintended URL. Thank you.